close the door so they don't see the lights.
Welcome, everyone. We have a special show for you today. For everyone who's watching live on the Lycoming County Republican Facebook page, and also Normal America with Rob Noor show. With special show for you today. So we're trying to bring you as many candidates, particularly Republican candidates, because let's be honest, we're Republicans. As many candidates that are running in Pennsylvania for Senate and governor as we can. And in that series, we are honored today to have former ambassador to Denmark under Donald Trump, Carla Sands, who's running for Senate here in Pennsylvania. We're absolutely honored to have her here today. So thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Sands. We're really been looking forward to talking to you again ever since we met in person.
Thanks a lot. Great to talk to you, Rob and Carlos. And thanks to everybody that's joining you.
So I guess the way that we usually start is we have you talk a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit of biography, where you grew up. Sure. And a little bit of, any cool highlights about growing up and where'd you go to school and your business interests and then your political interests, and then we'll go from there.
How long do you want that to take?
Well, as long as it makes you feel comfortable, and that's really the whole key to the show.
Well, I can do like the shallow.
Yeah, no,
give us the cliff notes. Yeah.
Right. Give us.
I'm giving you the cliff notes.
Like.
Okay.
Got it.
So I'm an 8th generation Pennsylvanian, and my Pennsylvania roots are in the West. And those ancestors fought in the American Revolution and in the Civil War. They donated land almost 200 years ago for a church and a cemetery there in Greensburg. Mm. My dad was born in Greensburg. I grew up in the center part in Cumberland County and went to Cumberland Valley High School, got an awesome public school education. Nobody tried to indoctrinate me. And and my first job was at Hershey Park. But as a kid, I would go to a Christian sleepaway camp called Camp Hebron that I ended up going back to with my siblings, with our kids every summer. And so our kids kind of grew up going to that same camp that we did. And it's terrific, and a lot of wonderful nature and fellowship and, like that. But I practiced as a 3rd generation doctor of chiropractic alongside my dad in Camp Hill at our family practice. And some of my undergrad studies were at Indiana University of Pennsylvania and also Elizabethtown College. But it was while I was a high school student that I took a test about aptitudes. And I went home and told my little sister, when I grew up, I want to be an ambassador and represent our country. And I'm from central Pennsylvania. We don't know about the Foreign Service. It's too far from DC to know, like, you have to go take a test and then you can have that as a career path. It's a wonderful career path, but I didn't know about that. But I nurtured that dream in my heart for decades. And so while I was working for my dad there in Camp Hill as a doctor, I got a call with a job offer, and I didn't want to take it. But, it was an opportunity that I felt like I couldn't resist. And I went to LA and did a soap, did some movies, dozens of commercials, and some of them ran during the Super Bowl. And then a few years for Republican candidates and worthy causes. And it was a true partnership. And that's what we were doing when in 2015, he suddenly passed away. And it was completely without warning. I mean, he had worked out that morning, like total shock. And our daughter was 15 years old at the time. Mm. And I stepped up to run our family's business. Thankfully, he had brought me in before that time. And then in 2016, I met Donald Trump. And I worked hard to help him get elected, just like I had, along with my husband, every Republican candidate since I'd been an adult. but also we had worked to help governors get elected, congressmen, and U.S. senators, and then others as well. And so then you probably know the story. He appointed me to his Economic Advisory Council and his transition team, and then as his ambassador to Denmark and Greenland and the Faroe Islands. So my daughter and I moved there in 2017. She finished high school there, and I worked in the embassy in Copenhagen. And when I was getting briefed, some of the briefs were about the Russian gas pipeline that was going in, that was passing through Danish waters. So I had that awareness. Kurt Volker briefed me on Ukraine issues because along with US, Denmark was also working to help them have less corruption, good governance. The US does a lot of that around the world, helping countries have more liberty and less corruption. Mm-hmm. And some of the other things we prepared was looking at the Arctic region. Greenland is in the Arctic, but it's just off our northeast coast, and it's the world's largest island. It's so big, it's a third the size of the continental US. Mm-hmm. But we had kind of ceded the whole region to Russia and China. They do a lot more trade up there than we do. Their security apparatus were up there, and we were almost absent the field, more or less. There was a lot more. There was a lot of activity. And so having that awareness and then getting on the ground and seeing the situation and hearing from folks, I realized that we had a problem. And so we worked to secure that region, and we did things like put a consulate in Greenland. We hadn't had a diplomatic relationship, like I said, for 67 years. It's a long time. Wow. Get a Coast Guard billet for Denmark for Arctic security. So because they have policing powers, it's different from the other branches of the military. Do trade and cooperation agreements with the Faroe Islands and Greenland. So begin to juice the trade. And then I got Peace Corps for Greenland and English teaching, English language specialists, because when I would meet with the officials there in Greenland, they would tell me, we want more tourism, but we don't want to have to speak Chinese. We want to learn to speak English. They wanted to speak English and grow Western tourism, not Chinese tourism. And so that's an opportunity. And they wanted to expand their mining. They have rare earth minerals up there, that's the stuff that goes in our like cell phones, defense equipment, and our electric car batteries. And China has a minority interest in a majority of the mines up there. That's a real problem because we were really ceding it to China. Again, they already control most of like 90% plus of the rare earths around the world, not only just the mining, but the processing too. So we needed to make sure that didn't fall in the wrong hands. So working on those issues and making sure that my team was in a good place and that we were all marching in the same direction, if you will. It was a terrific experience. And you might already know this, but the DoD did give me their highest civilian honor for that work. And it was about relentless diplomacy. So, and that's basically what I bring to the table, understanding, having worked with the DoD and NATO, working on the Ukraine issues. You might know my team and I blocked that Russian gas pipeline. The only place it didn't get completed was in my area of responsibility. Mm-hmm. First, because it was in Danish waters and we could delay. But then I had the threat of sanctions, which I just kept pushing, like Biden when he was at the podium today. And he said, well, sanctions before don't do anything. Let me tell you, they do something, because I had that threat of sanctions hanging over, and we were able to stop that Russian gas pipeline, which we know the story. Biden, with a stroke of his pen on the first day, green lighted, no, not the first day. He killed Keystone XL pipeline first day, and those 11,000 jobs. But a few months later, he green lighted Putin's pipeline, the Nord Stream 2, that Russian gas going to not just Germany, but all of Europe. Mm-hmm. And I believe that because of his corruption, the Hunter Biden laptop and all the stuff going on with the Biden family, with China and Russia and Ukraine, I don't think we have an honest broker as far as leading and protecting us and our interests, because he's so compromised. And I had an article come out today where I'm quoted saying about the Biden laptop, and literally at the bottom of the article, it goes, "This is disinformation. The former Attorney General of the United States said that the Hunter Biden laptop story was false." today. So they're still pushing out lies. Mainstream media,
Mhm.
it's just a default is you don't believe what you're reading, and
Yeah.
you try to figure out what is the true story, which isn't so easy, right? If you can go to the source, then you can get it. But anyway, I'm digressing. So it was while I was working there in Denmark that I was watching the chaos in 2020. I moved there in 2017, and I didn't come home until January 2021. And it was before the election when they had those stormtroopers out there, Antifa and BLM, rioting and looting across the country. And you didn't see many people get arrested and serve time. And they were killing people, like more than 30 people, some in uniform. But then we also saw the incoming Biden administration talking about how he was going to ban fracking. No, I'm not, but yeah, I'm going to ban fracking. You know, he'd say both things like in the same day. And then we saw him saying, we're going to open the southern border. If you want to come in, you come in. And you were like, really? And then we also saw the cancellation of the sitting US president from social media, which they had the Ayatollah up, they had Putin on, and all these bad actors, you know, the Chinese Ministry of Misinformation, but not the sitting US president. And it's a US company. And that's when you know. And when, you know, here I had been working to get people elected over the years. And it was like a handful of them were fighting against this. And the rest were like, well, yeah, we'll compromise on that bill, whatever it is. Yeah, sure, it's a garbage bill, but we want to go along to get along. And those days are so over.
Yeah.
We're in a fight right now for our country. And we're hanging on like by a thread, because all the levers of power are controlled by leftists, Marxists.
Yeah.
I said the other day, this is no longer the party of John F. Kennedy. This is the party of Bernie Sanders and AOC. And it's the Venezuela style socialism, not the Denmark style socialism. So when I was watching Biden today at his press conference, and he goes, he got this question from the press, and they literally said, well, Mr. Biden, how are you going to stop President Trump getting reelected and have the terrible things happen that happened when he was president? And I was like, wait a second. You know, you want to say, what's the matter with you? There would have been no invasion if President Trump was president. Are you out of your mind? They're so deluded in Europe. They literally think that Republicans, except for a few conservatives in a certain party, you know, here and there, they think Republicans bad, Democrats good. It's bizarre.
Well, we're certainly going to get to that, and just as a comment, they definitely need to be able to put Donald Trump as the bad guy right now or at any time in the future, so that way they can keep doing the things that they're doing behind the scenes. But just to go back a little bit, you had mentioned that. So where did you go to school at chiropractic?
I went to Life University. It was called Life Chiropractic College at that time, in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
My dad and granddad went in Davenport, Iowa. And so I thought about the cold and how the seasons are there. I thought, Georgia peaches sound pretty good to me. So
yeah, my brother-in-law is a chiropractor. He went to the college in Spartanburg.
Okay.
So you had mentioned worship. Where do you worship now?
Well, now I go to a church in Harrisburg called Life Center. It's a non-denominational church with a wonderful worship service and wonderful pastors. And in Denmark, I went to a church called Hillsong, and it's worldwide in English, and it is also non-denominational. And there's a terrific pastor there that I worshiped under, Pastor Thomas Hansen. And here it's Pastor Charles Stock here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
And
yeah.
What was the type of business that you and your husband had when he passed?
So it was, there were a few different lines of effort, but mostly it was commercial real estate, and we had properties throughout the U.S. Yeah. So we were sort of traveling all over the place, taking as owner operators.
So by trade, I'm a filmmaker. So tell me, just give me a minute on Hollywood and how that started, and where'd you live when you were out there?
I was in Westwood
Oh, okay.
when I was single, and then we built a house together, my husband and I. So that was great. But that was a very short blip, and then within a few years I was practicing.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part of trying to support conservative and Republican candidates in Los Angeles?
There was no hard part. I was loud and proud. I was prolific. I'm a prolific fundraiser and candidate supporter, and I have a great track record. I'm with a good reputation. In fact, I've been a conservative activist all my adult life. I don't know if you know, I spoke on the main stage at CPAC about almost 4 weeks ago now, three and a half weeks ago. And YouTube just censored my speeches and President Trump's and took them off of YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to get to deplatforming. Before we get there and we turn it over to Rob, can you talk about so what happened to you when you decided that you wanted to run for U.S. Senate? What was the internal mechanism that made you decide that this is what you wanted to do? I mean, you're in politics already. You were a U.S. ambassador. You know how grueling it is. You know how the media is. Why would you put yourself through this?
So it was the hardest thing I've ever done to be the U.S. ambassador, because it was shuttle diplomacy, and I'm here and there, and I've got my team, and then I've got the wider team of the USG with commerce and energy, interior, treasury, the State Department. I was working with the Congress and Senate, even the Senate Armed Services Committee, to get this stuff done. I was back and forth. My team were like, go back and get more, please. So it was a lot of work. My team was exhausted when I left, but we were so thrilled to be able to conceive and complete projects, because nobody gets to do that. So we literally, from the idea to happening, that was God. I mean, that we were able to push through all that, and a lot of hard work. The germ of it was I have a 21-year-old daughter, and all this stuff was happening here in the US. I was watching it online from Denmark, from my residency after work. I mean, I'd be watching these videos of the rioting or Biden speeches, the stuff you knew what was going to happen with the election. We all knew. And it was a moving train wreck. You knew what was going to happen. They'd been practicing this stuff, and you had seen it in pockets, and then they just rolled it out with the Zuckerbucks. So there's a great article, by the way, from Time Magazine in like February or March of 2021, where a union guy from Chicago lays out, he calls it the what do you call it? Something about the
shadowy cabal that was fortifying the election for Joe Biden. I'm well aware.
Fortifying the election. If you haven't read it, you should read it, and it lays out the playbook. I don't think the Zuckerbucks are in there. They might be, but the Zuckerberg, American oligarch manipulation of the outcome of the election. We know Rand Paul said they stole the election. That's how they did it. They did it legally. So watching that all unfold, and it was already clear that the Democrats were a different kind of party than they were when we were growing up. And I became so concerned for our country that we were not going to be able to salvage it with this really voracious left, that I thought, well, I've been working to get all these Republicans elected, and many of them, maybe most, aren't really working for us. They're working for themselves. They're not holding the line against the left, and the left is intent on taking over. And the Republicans are like, well, we just want to be liked. We're going to compromise. You know what? Those days, I'm sorry. I had no friendly media outlet in Denmark. They hated the agenda of America First. They did not want to pay more to NATO. they wanted us to carry them. I'll give you an example. So when I got there, Denmark was paying 1.17% of their GDP, even though they told Barack Obama in 2014 they'd be paying 2% by 2024, I think it was, 10 years. And so I get there and, I'm talking, I'm like, NATO, and they're like, yeah, but we wouldn't know how to spend the money if we raised it. And I was like, well, I'm seeing reports that you need to step it up. You need to buy equipment, train your people, have more people. Oh, but we wouldn't know. I'm like, okay. So I go on this Navy frigate, and these boats, the ships their Navy had, they're gorgeous. They're much nicer than our ships. I mean, every guy's got his own stateroom. It's a private bathroom. You can't believe it. So I go on this thing, and it's like a Lego ship. You can put parts on and take them off. They go, you want to see the missile silos? And I was like, sure. And so we walk in, and I look up, and it's like 30, 40 feet tall. These are just gigantic. And I said, well, where are the missiles? He goes, oh, Madam Ambassador, we don't have the money to buy the missiles. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. So every TV, newspaper, radio interview, I'd be like, there's no missiles in the silo. They started to make cartoons about me, like making, these sort of things. I'm telling the prime minister, buy missiles. And I eventually took their chief of defense out to Raytheon in Arizona. And guess what we did? We bought those missiles. And we American jobs, American arms, and more interoperability with our ally. But they have free healthcare, and they have free college if you qualify, but they don't want to spend it on their defense because they're going to rest on Americans spending 3.5% of our GDP. No free healthcare, no free college. But if we'll do it and we're suckers, why wouldn't they take advantage, right? And that's what's been going on in trade, in defense, in everything. America, when we first went in there with NATO, these countries were all dirt poor. But we had the Marshall Plan, and we helped them become robust, rich countries, but we never changed the deal. And so we need a new deal. Like President Trump, he got that USMCA updated from NAFTA, which was a bad deal. He got the trade with Japan better, got that first trade deal with China, and he also got a better trade deal with Europe, working on it, getting it improved, because they block our stuff even if our stuff is better. They just block it. So we got them to plus up to 1.5% of their GDP, and in a non-budgetary year. That was a success, getting more money to NATO so we don't have to pay for their defense. That's not fair. But now with this invasion of Ukraine, you can bet these countries are going to be scrambling to actually have a real defense.
We have their individual attention.
Yeah. So I have a series of questions centered around the idea of corruption. To me, that is the most important issue that I see in politics, and most of my audience would feel the same way. So kind of three small questions I have on that. I'll use a specific example that you brought up, but you could speak of it in general if you want. You mentioned the Hunter Biden laptop story. For me, this is one of the biggest examples of election interference, and all of our major institutions basically stealing an election or putting their thumb on the scale. So given that, I have three questions. The first is, the media was one of the people that are responsible for colluding, what we consider the media, what I call professional propagandists. What would you do with things like Section 230 or other possibilities you would have to stop our media from putting their thumb on the scale of who could be elected as both Republicans and Democrat in this country?
Is that the first part of the question?
Yeah, that's it. Yep. Okay.
So first of all, that Hunter Biden laptop story, we all knew it was true, right? I mean, you saw it. The guy was credible. The laptop, like, that's not an ops thing. That's just a different kind of thing. That's a guy that's an alcoholic and a drug addict that does something dumb. We all saw Twitter take down the New York Post page. We saw Facebook. So Zuckerberg, in another way, clearly gave an illegal donation, right, to the Democrat candidate Biden by not allowing a true story. And then the mainstream media, who basically are running things, they just went to work, right? And they had all of those. Did you see those intelligence officers, former heads of the CIA?
That was my second question, right? Yep.
And come out and say, oh, this is Russian disinformation. When they're saying that, that's what they're doing. Just like Hillary Clinton, she was saying, oh, well, this is Russia, remember, they were spying on Trump as a candidate. And then even when he was a sitting president, meaning they had people inside spying on him in his own White House. This is so much bigger than Watergate. And how do you get to the bottom of it when the DOJ is compromised? The FBI is part of the DOJ. I mean, we have real issues in our country, and clearly conservatives, and we've always been the one who trusts the institutions, right? We're the people that go to work every day and put the food on the table and take care of our country. We're not out there rioting in the streets. And we can see that things have not gone well for the United States, because I believe, I'm a Christian, and I believe it's because we stayed in the church and we didn't make our voice very loud in the public square. And I think this is a new day and a new moment, and we are taking our country back because we are the majority. Not only are we the majority, we have our faith that unites us and makes us powerful. There is nothing that can stop us if we intend to do something, because, you know, we have the big guy behind us.
It's a senator. And would you push for investigations, independent investigations into our intel community and possible collusion they had with the media in covering up stories like this?
So here's what I'll say now before I'm elected. As soon as you're sworn in as a U.S. Senator, you can investigate. So I think that the first thing I do as a U.S. Senator is we begin, and it sounds like some of the conservative senators are already talking about this in the Senate. We investigate the Hunter Biden laptop and the Biden family corruption, but not just investigate. That's not enough. Those investigations go nowhere. We hold accountable. Richard Nixon had to resign or he would have been impeached. Spiro Agnew went to jail. Corruption is a real thing. And if there are not consequences, then there's no meaning to the rule of law.
I totally agree. The last
also, and China, then the Wuhan virus, because the Communist Chinese Party is responsible. We know, open source, they stopped the flights from Wuhan to the rest of China, but they allowed the flights from Wuhan to the rest of the world, and had the WHO, World Health Organization, cover and say, no, that's discrimination. Let those flights go out from Wuhan to the rest of the world. Northern Italy did, and they had massive loss of life right away. And other places, President Trump smartly closed those flights down from China. So there is so much corruption in Washington. And I think President Trump really, for the first time in my life, really shined the light on it. We saw like the DOJ investigating the IRS, you know, giving a bad time to these conservative groups under Barack Obama. So we saw some, like, we knew there was something there, but we didn't know how deep it was until people like the former head of the CIA came out, an avowed communist, and started to speak how he really thought, and others. And you went, oh my gosh, these are the people running this country. And even the people that Joe Biden has attempted to appoint to different positions of power, like the former head of the currency control, a woman who literally is a Marxist, who studied Marxism in Moscow and said things like we should federalize all the banks. All our currency would have to go to the federal government, no more banks, which is, I don't even think the Soviet Union had that. Or another recent one who just withdrew, who said literally, I think she said, we have to debank the energy companies. Just don't allow them to bank. Can you imagine if all of a sudden all manufacturing in the United States stopped? We couldn't drive our cars and there was no heat in our homes because energy couldn't finance their business. These people are, there's no words to describe. You can't use normal language to describe how bad these people are. These people, it's not like an alternative reality. These are evil people.
Just real quick, last question on that. Seeing as how you were with absolutely fine. That you were with the Trump administration. Do you think he underestimated the depths of the corruption? And if you had to do it over again, would you have liked to have seen him go further, declassifying some of the corruption against him or doing other things to out the corruption more?
You know, here's the thing. It's so complicated. It takes a big team to run the federal government. He's not of politics. So he came in with whoever, you know, trusted advisor said he should hire. And a lot of those people were working against him, even Republicans. So you talk about corruption, there's also just the unelected bureaucrats that do stuff that are not in the interest of the American people. The number one job of an elected official is the safety and security of the people that they govern. But look at Afghanistan. Look at what's going on around the world, the chaos, the open border. You want to live in a community on our border right now? How about family members that have died from fentanyl coming over that border because he opened it wide? I personally lost a young family member over Christmas break to a fentanyl overdose. This is the number one killer for people from, I think it's 18 to 45 or 49. This is a serious thing. Some of the counties that I go to here in Pennsylvania tell me it's a crisis and they don't have the resources to help these people. They're all strung out and they're everywhere and they don't know what to do. They're sick and they're dying and they need treatment. And they're like, can you help us get resources? Well, yes, I can. But at the state level, they can do more too. And I don't think that the elected officials are really addressing this. I don't see as much attention on this as I do, getting transgender swimmers able to compete against girls.
Don't get us started.
From this government.
Go ahead, Carlos.
So I want to go back to one of our major concerns for Robert and I, and this is just, Carla, we have so many problems. Which is why we want our U.S. Senator candidates to be whip smart and killers. Okay,
I'm ready on day one. I'm the only one who is. I'm the only one who works on these issues.
And me being, raised in New Jersey, accent on the killer part. Okay, I shared that with you when I first met you up in Doug McClinko's. Here's a real major concern that Robert and I have. We are very concerned that there are very few tools that are available to be able to forestall the deplatforming that the technology companies, are pursuing against everybody that's against them.
Right.
The Section 230 thing, I'm not an expert. I'm not the smartest guy here, but changing that will wreck a lot of things. And that's the truth. Okay. And I'm a conservative and it's going to wreck a lot of things. So what in your mind, hopefully you're whip smart and you can give us an idea of what's formulating in your mind with respect to this issue.
Right.
Is it antitrust? Is it, and I think that someone came out on Twitter just yesterday, Rob, with the digital Bill of Rights. Did I send that to you?
Yeah, it's
Dave Royboy or whatever, Royboy. We need something to be able to forestall these people operating the way that they're operating. And I'm asking you this because of all the candidates that I've heard on the U.S. Senate side, you're the only one that talks about using American supremacy economically to stand in for foreign policy supremacy. You get that, okay? And we have a mutual friend that absolutely loves you because you're the only one that gets it. So the stronger that America is, the stronger that the foreign policy is going to be. But how do we do that when we have this sector of our economy that feels like is fighting against us?
Well, they are. Yeah. So, I've evolved. When it first started to happen, I was like, well, they're private companies, I guess they can. But by the time the pandemic hit and they became the public square, I'm like, no. They're the phone company. And we have to regulate them like the phone company. No matter what your politics, you can get a phone. That's technology because they are now the public square and they're colluding with the government. So they're also an arm of the government, which removes a lot of protections that they would have. I look to Ron DeSantis for this example. You learn from the best. He's one of the best. And what he did is he said to the big tech companies, If you censor conservative speech, you're going to have a $250,000 fine every time you do it. Now, I haven't checked in internals in Florida, but after he made that ruling, I would guess that they're probably not censoring people in Florida the way they are, say, us, because he made that ruling, and the thing is, I don't know how they can get around that then in the state of Florida, right? I mean, Florida has its own law. So I haven't followed up, but I loved it. So I don't know if we can do it at the federal level, but when we take back the Senate and the House, why don't we pass a law that has teeth in it, not an executive order that can be, they're not worth it. We have to pass it, but it means lobbying. And I think that these companies are paying a lot of representatives on both sides of the aisle. So I think it's hard to get anything done because that's bribery, right? They're basically hoping to fund their campaigns.
What my friend Robert will tell you is that the other side of the sword, or the other edge of the sword, is that they invest in Republicans and in Democrats equally. So there's always that money to be able to contain them. And listen, you could say we love Senator Lee from Utah, but he's taking a lot of money from Google. Okay, so does that?
He's very outspoken about China, though, which I really appreciate.
No, but with respect to your ideology of having American supremacy, American foreign policy be supreme based on the economy,
right.
We have to ask these questions.
That's peace through strength, right? Peace through
correct.
Strength.
The
world needs us to do that.
You had us at hello in that sense.
Okay.
My concern with respect to looking at these companies like utilities is that the second, I think it plays into their hands, because the second that you look at them as utilities, the idea of competition is gone. Like PPNL here in Williamsport.
Look at our cell phones. Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, these companies start up and sometimes they consolidate, and I love the free market. I'm a free marketeer at heart, but I just wanted to raise one more thing with you, because I just want to make sure I get it in. And that is, besides my website, carlasands.com, what it is that I want to be Pennsylvania's energy senator. And I've been saying that for months and months and months, but it's becoming much more important now. And when I was on the main stage at CPAC, I called for this, and I want to just mention it to you and whoever's watching. I am calling publicly for Operation Warp Speed for American and Pennsylvania energy, so that we get our energy dominance back, because we can see it's essential, because energy is not just a commodity, it's a weapon. And Putin has weaponized his energy so profoundly. We have enough energy under our feet just here in Pennsylvania to power the entire United States for 300 years. So 300 years is a game changer. It means we can slowly change to different kinds of energy. We have more energy under the soil in America than I believe Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. We're awash in energy, and we harvest it cleaner here than anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. For people who care about clean air, clean soil, clean water, we do it right, they do it dirty. And so to maximize our harvesting and then put the pipes in the 1940s, I read about a pipe that went in more than 1,000 miles in less than a year in the 40s. With our technology today, can you imagine how fast that can go in if we purpose to do it? But we need strong America First leaders that are going to say, we have to get this done. We need the energy. We don't want energy from places like Russia, Venezuela. Now they're saying Iran. Can you imagine? To fund their terror. So we need to harvest, drill, harvest, move it, and then sell some to our allies. Biden was just over there saying that Europe's going to get off Russian energy. I'll believe it when I see it. But in the meantime, they've already built these terminals in places like Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, Croatia. They want American energy. They don't want Russian energy. And why shouldn't it come from us when we have enough to use for ourselves and sell to our allies? When I was the ambassador, I would work to sell American natural gas. And I would tell them, why are you buying Russian gas? Even Denmark buys it. Why don't you buy American gas? Well, ambassador, it's a few cents more a barrel. I'm like, but that's the price of freedom. So I would call it freedom gas. And I think our gas is freedom gas. And, as long as this regime is in place, maybe Biden can be pressured because of what's going on to turn the energy tap, back up. But the Green New Deal, these revolutionary Marxists that are trying to use Green New Deal policies to fundamentally change our country and the world, that's going to be the battle, is getting through them, because they're trying to shut down domestic production. And that the pressure on our farmers from these Green New Deal policies are just terrible, with the waters regulations and, all these sort of restrictions. They don't want the cows to have methane. It's just a real battle.
So I was going to ask, going in a slightly different direction here, but just a real quick question. If you were on the Senate today, would you vote to confirm Biden's nominee for the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and why or why not?
But before you do that,
yeah,
can you tell us what a woman is?
Well, you're looking at one. If you're born a woman, you're a woman. Women are female. We have female sex organs. We can bear children. And I celebrate being a woman. I'm thrilled that I was born a woman. It's a blessing. And so we need to make sure that we do not let others change our language, because our words have meaning and power. And the fact that she would not define what a woman is and said, I'm not a biologist. And that would be like saying, is this a hamburger? Well, I don't know. I'm not a chef. I don't know.
It disqualifies her. Let's be honest.
100%.
Sorry.
I would never vote in a nominee who is, first of all, not a constitutionalist. They're not supposed to make up law. She's a radical. She's pushing critical race theory. This woman is lying. She said she didn't know, and then you saw one of the senators read her lecture. So, these people and the nominees from this administration, I think they're so radical it disqualifies them. We're looking for people that want to put America first, that want to build our country, and help the people. Americans are suffering right now under the inflation that's going on across our country. First of all, because Biden had all those multi-trillion-dollar bills, and now his war on American energy and Pennsylvania energy means the cost of everything goes through the roof. And now with Russia and cutting off that Russian energy, it's going to go even higher. I mean, could we see double-digit, per gallon of gas by this summer? I don't know, maybe.
What is paying in rubles? How does that change the equation? I don't know if did you see that yesterday?
I did. So here's what I'll say to that. I'd rather see it in rubles than yuan. What we don't want is for China to become the default currency.
Well, you can thank MasterCard and Visa for that.
Can you believe that? Can you believe that? The unintended consequences, you always have to have second thought before you make a decision, before you reflexively, like they're calling for violence against Russian people, and the social media companies are going, okay, it's not the Russian people. It's this crazy Vladimir Putin that's doing this. The Russian people are suffering.
Yeah.
Right now, they're cut off from the world. Their currency has dropped. I'm sure they have shortages of things. It's a terrible situation for them. It's terrible for the Ukrainians. None of this had to happen. All Joe Biden had to do, not be corrupt and compromised, not okay that Russian gas pipeline, which was one piece of the puzzle. And then secondly, he let Vladimir Putin amass those troops along that border as soon as Vladimir saw his withdrawal from Afghanistan. And he never said, get those troops out of there, or we're going to, and then there's a consequence. But they, like Jen Psaki said the other day from the podium, well, we don't like red lines. Well, guess what? I like red lines. Red lines work.
I heard one of the people, fellow candidates of yours, asked this question. So I think it'd be fair game to ask. Do you have
somebody asked a certain question of a competitor of mine?
Yes. So I will ask you.
There's three of us in double digits. Wait, I just want to say, setting the table, there's three of us in double digits.
It's one of them.
Two two weaker type Republicans who, who go along to get along, and then there's one conservative. That's my lane. It's bright and shining.
So let me ask you straight up, because it was a question they seem to hesitate to answer. Do you have strong feelings on when life begins?
Life begins at conception.
Do you think that abortion is an issue that would be important for you to deal with as a first term in your Senate?
I think abortion is an issue that's important to deal with always. And that's why the Supreme Court matters, why this nominee matters, why the health of Clarence Thomas, dear, precious Clarence Thomas, matters, because life matters. Life matters.
Yeah.
So you said that you wanted to be the energy senator.
I do, and I'm calling for Operation Warp Speed.
So can you walk us through the idea of how you got there vis-a-vis how other senators have had the opportunity to do the same thing that you want to do based on the same information? Does that sound crazy?
Well,
you had the same information, right? You had this
but
information.
Everybody's different. But you look at the problem globally, right? You see what's happening here in Pennsylvania, the hollowed out towns, jobs and companies moved away the last 40 plus years. We know what happened, right? Our state has stagnated. It hasn't blossomed like Texas when we have the same kind of resources, and we should be just booming right now. So I would like to see that opportunity come here. Looking at having worked on the energy issues, Ukraine, Russia, American gas as the ambassador, and having an understanding of it globally, and then bringing it home here to Pennsylvania and understanding the opportunity that we can seize, and now seeing the absolute essential defense policy, we have to do it, and it's going to be good for our economy. It's also going to help us be safe against places like Iran and Russia. Whatever bad country you want is going to have a stick on us if we're buying their energy, just like they're abusing Ukraine right now. And Europe's terrified they're going to put some biological or chemical weapon over there in Ukraine, and half of, the next country dies. That's what they're terrified of, half of a NATO country, which pulls us in. So there's a lot of bad opportunity happening right now. But it was really while I was working there that I began in Denmark for, all of your viewers, that I began to realize the importance of energy globally. And so seeing how it translates into jobs here at home and the prosperity of the counties that have the fracking, where the farmers benefit, and they've got the big RV in the driveway and the boat in the back, and the houses are repaired and beautiful. And then you go to the counties that don't, and the houses are a little bit not quite as fine because they don't have the resources. They don't have those leases under the ground. They can't benefit. Even some of those counties where they banned it up in the Northeast, we have to, with Operation Warp Speed, suddenly those blocks, they go away, right? Because it's an emergency. You can put the pipe up to New England. So New England's not heating their homes tonight with Russian gas. They're using American domestic gas, because right now New York blocks us from putting that pipeline through.
Right.
So there's a lot we can do by working with the governor. So at the federal level, get the regulations right. At the state level, you get the regulations permitting right, local. And when you have an emergency and you have a willing actor, a good governor and a good senator, and then and good governance in Washington, we can get stuff done. We know it, right? Because during war times, we really get stuff done.
One of the things that we had gubernatorial candidate Jason
Ritchie on, yeah.
Ritchie, and he talked a lot about the fact that the state of Pennsylvania is in no way capable of being able to take advantage of selling gas and oil to Europe right now, because we just can't get it there. So, and I'm sure you've talked to him.
We need a pipe to Philadelphia, to the harbor. Yeah,
right,
we need a pipe from Western
which
PA
helps Philadelphia. It helps Philadelphia with thousands of jobs.
And it's good jobs. So there's even more than that. So there's a cracker plant that's being built in Western PA right now.
Yeah.
And what it does is it breaks apart the molecules and makes the stuff in our car, in our workplace, in our home, the stuff we wear. And they did a void analysis. They need 4 to 5 more cracker plants. guys, that's like tens of billions of dollars of investment, really high skilled jobs where you can support a family with one earner, a great living. That's how it was when I was growing up.
Right.
One earner, they didn't need a college education. They could support the family, have a car, have a TV, a nice house. And that has gone away because the wages haven't kept up and the industry's gone away. Pennsylvania has that capability. We just have to skill up like that. There's a Lackawanna Energy college where they teach young people about, but we need more of that to get the skilled labor, have it here in Pennsylvania. But we need a governor along with the federal help to make sure that we get the permitting and the regulations right so that they don't block it. Like they did that. Remember that big US Steel deal that was going in near Pittsburgh, and literally the local government tormented them until they just packed up and left. They lost hundreds of millions of dollars of sunk cost. And they're like, we're out 2 years.
Right. And then they went to Arkansas.
Right. You want to make sure that doesn't happen again. Those opportunities don't come by every day. That's like AOC. Remember when she blocked Amazon going into her New York neighborhood? So they said, okay, fine. We'll go to Washington, D.C. area. No problem. And those jobs went right along with them. Those jobs, that is the economy that we need to build here in Pennsylvania so kids don't have to go to other states for opportunity. That's what I want to do, is make Pennsylvania great. Opportunity, great jobs, so the family can build their family here, businesses can come here, because even in good years, Pennsylvania's been going in the wrong direction. It's because of bad policy and high taxes, unfriendly to businesses and families, but we can get that back with good leadership.
So we got about 10 more minutes, so I'll ask one more question, then Carlos, then we'll give you some opportunity to wrap up. Though I'm sure we could talk all day. I'm really enjoying this. One of the things that when I talk to just run-of-the-mill people here in Pennsylvania, in my rural community that I live in, that people I think rightfully ask is, they've been voting Republican their whole life, and it seems like just as often as those Republicans are helpful, they don't really do anything to help the people in the area. We saw this with the Trump administration with so many Republicans, including some in leadership, that seem to try to go against Trump at every level. If elected, would you be willing to go against even Republican leadership if you felt that their values weren't representing what you believe in your constituents?
So as Pennsylvania's next senator, I will put Pennsylvania first. Pennsylvania has not been well served. It hasn't been going in the right direction for, how long? Certainly since my teenagers. I saw Johnstown hollow out. Other cities and towns across the state where there were 30,000 residents, now there's 5,000, because businesses moved oftentimes to Asia and those good jobs went along with them. We need to make Pennsylvania welcoming, but at the federal level, what I can do is help regulations, support business, support development. Pennsylvania should be, like I said, like Texas and less like New York, which we see New York's losing population. We're barely hanging on. We just lost a congressional seat. We lost in 2019, that powerhouse year under President Trump. We lost 1.7 billion GDP in Pennsylvania. It should have been 5 billion increase, but that's because it's unfriendly. But at the federal level, I will do everything I can to make sure that our farmers are supported with common sense regulations. I'll kill those Green New Deal terrible regulations, and they're stuffed into every one of these multi-trillion-dollar bills that Biden is passing. These people are in power for more than 2.5 more years. We have to stop them in November, and then we have to begin to roll that stuff back. But there's more. We have to make sure that our energy sector is supported, that there's no war in Washington. So we have to push back hard on Biden and this sort of unelected bureaucrats, the blob, that it's attempting to really put our energy companies out of business, even debanking them. Also, we need to make sure that our border is secure. How can we do it? Well, we have to take the White House in 2024. I will always be on the offense for Pennsylvania. I'll never back down. I am so done. And I think most of our voters are done. They see the chaos around the country and the world because of bad leftist leadership and weak Republicans that aren't stopping it. We can stop it. But there's even more. critical race theory. They're teaching our kids to hate each other, to hate their country. You can't have a country if you're doing that to your kids. So we have to ban it at the federal level. And I like what President Trump did. He created the 1776 project about our founding year. And yes, and I wanted to be on it, but I was in Denmark, so I couldn't advocate. That's a brilliant thing. That's after my heart, is to support our patriotic education, to learn about the glory of our founding, which is divinely inspired, and our laws, which are the best in the world because it limits the government's power. And we have to make sure that our constitutional rights are protected in Washington. There's an attempt to debase our constitutional rights and roll them back. The First Amendment being, in my mind, highest. But during the pandemic, freedom of religion and religious exercise was also definitely under attack. This administration has promised to attack the Second Amendment. I will never back down, not one quarter. The Second Amendment is what limits our government's power. So I will not give an inch. The left takes an inch and tomorrow takes another. We have to stop it, and we have to go on the offense. It's time for the left to compromise and for us to take our constitutional rights back, enforce the rule of law, and make sure that American citizens are served by their government, not punished by their government.
So take us into the inner sanctum of the Sans mind, and talk to us about, how I told you that I like my senators to be killers. Yeah. And I believe you that you'll be ready on day one. Okay. There's certain things that you have an advantage on just because you've operated within the government and you know what to do and what not to do. Where are you a stone dead killer? On what issue are you a stone dead killer that nobody knows about?
Okay, first of all, there's one more advantage. As a woman, is +5 at the ballot. +5. And if we're going to not send John Fetterman to represent us, I like those odds. I like +5. And Pennsylvania's never had a female senator or governor either. Even Texas has had a female senator and governor. I'm just saying, probably overdue. But that I'm relentless, that I never back down. I'm relentless. And I just keep going at it because you know what? If a door is closed, you just keep knocking. And it's just, I will never stop fighting. I tell my daughter that. I'm like, honey, I'm never going to stop fighting. She goes, Mom, don't forget you said that. You own it.
What is there a good example of that relentlessness in your past? What?
Well, most recent, listen, I'm from Central Pennsylvania. I don't know any other ambassador that came from Central Pennsylvania. It's kind of unusual. So I had to be pretty relentless, but trying to get security in the region I was in, that GI-UK gap, Greenland, Iceland, UK, that region, when I first proposed it at the Department of Defense, they weren't interested. State Department, not interested. They were like, eh. But it was really real what was happening. And so I just kept going at it and telling them the story and showing them this is where it is. This is what's, some things you can't share here, some things you could. But then, and there are books written about it. And I got briefed by those writers, and I would share the information with everyone at the highest levels at every one of those departments, and then on down in the layers. Because decision making, oftentimes it filters up to the boss, right? Because it's the working layer that writes the paper that the boss reads. So you have to go to the top, but then you go to all the different layers. So I would work with everybody. And there was no one I wasn't willing to meet with to get this done. And when the DOD gave me that award, it was about relentless. They used the word because I just never stopped, because that's what it takes, is you just have to be committed, believe in it, right? And know it's a righteous cause. And then I got my team to believe in it because I showed them, and they also agreed. And then I made sure that they were valued and they got benefits from their hard work as well. I made sure that my people were taken care of and that they were acknowledged, all that hard work. And so it was it took everybody to get it done. You don't get anything important or valuable done on your own. Many hands held that project, those projects together, and helped it get done. And these were tremendous patriots. The people I worked with at my embassy, total patriots. They love their country. And they're mostly Democrats, but they love America, and they were determined to help us succeed. So that was terrific.
So I would like to be able to close asking you two questions.
I think somebody moved a phone on my computer. Let me see if I can decline. Okay.
It's probably someone more important than us.
No,
it happens.
No worries.
It's not my computer.
So the last two questions that I have for you are the following.
Okay.
Robert Knorr, his number one political issue is corruption.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
My number one political issue is police and the military.
Let's talk about police and the military first.
Okay. And the question is, what's yours? And then I'd like you to go into telling us the story of when you first met President Trump and when he offered you that position.
Okay. So
as much as you can.
Yeah. Police and military. So first of all, we have to make sure at the federal level that any city that defunds their police or allows illegal immigrants to vote, that we punish them so they change, because this is very bad.
Consequences.
Right, consequences. We love our police. That's how we keep the peace in the streets. And the military, I was blessed to work with the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, and our great Marines who stand guard 24/7 at every embassy around the world at Post 1. And then we had the Air Force, because we had Thule Air Base, which is north of the North Pole up in Greenland. It's an early warning radar system. And so you go up there, and like some months of the year, it's completely dark. Some months of the year, it never gets dark, the opposite. But it became part of Space Force under President Trump. So it was out of Colorado, Detachment 1, but it became part of Space Force, which was really exciting. And then I got that Coast Guard billet for Denmark for Arctic security. So we literally then had all of the services there at our embassy. That was an honor to work with those wonderful patriotic men and women. So we love our military. We don't want them to be indoctrinated. We need them to be a lethal fighting force, which they are. So President Trump, the first time I met him, I had a dinner for him at my home. Some good friends of mine had suggested that I meet with him, and then I raised money for him. And he's terrific. He really cares about people. He's very interested in others. He's kind, he's courteous, and he's also straightforward, which I appreciate. But so when I was in the Oval Office with him one time, and this was an interesting experience. So he said to me, "So what do you think? Should we buy Greenland?" And then he proposed a number for the deal. And I was like, "Well, sir, I don't think that's going to get it done." And it was a very unique experience. He's a deal guy, and he was the third U.S. president to propose this, because it's just off our northeast coast. And Denmark can't afford to defend it. They can't afford to develop it. So it just kind of sits up there, like people would really like something to happen up there. And the United States can do that, opportunity and things. So I got like the Interior Department to help them with tourism in Greenland. And we have all kinds of capabilities in the U.S. that we share with allies and partners to help them with whatever it is, if it's democracy and liberty, or if it's helping them get off their feet, to be successful, because we don't want them to be vulnerable to, we call it malign influence, but it's really to evil.
And
go ahead, Carlos.
Go ahead, bro.
No, I was going to go ahead, please. We're right at the hour mark, so go ahead, Carlos.
Yep. I guess my last question, I want to go back a little bit. What is your number one political issue before you became the candidate?
So, I didn't. First of all, let me just share with you before we get off, while your viewers are watching, if your viewers would like to volunteer for our campaign, we would be honored. We have a website, carlasands.com, and you can just sign up We would love you to put out yard signs, do door knocking, phone banking, get out the vote. We have an army of volunteers. We're working a lot with the faith community, but also the business community. And if you have a few hours a day or a week and like to volunteer, I would love you to be part of our army, because we're taking back our country and our Commonwealth. And my big issue, it's really about the people. It's about opportunity for our voters and their kids and grandkids. I think everything matters. I don't think you can let go of one of those threads. Energy, or quality of life, having police, whatever it is. People are suffering in Pennsylvania right now. When they fill up their tank of their car, they may be not getting the groceries that they wanted, or have trouble buying something for their kids. We are a big working state. We have that median income, $61,000 a year. And a lot of people don't make that. Yeah. How they're making it with the pressure of this administration, with the inflation, it's going to go up to 10% soon, because the wholesale price index was 10% just recently. So we need to bring that down, and how we're going to do it, I'm going to do it. So when you're filling up your tank, if you want that to cost less, think of Carla Sands, because I'm going to bring the price down. I'm going to be the energy senator. We're going to harvest more. And this administration is going to be forced to do it because of this Russian invasion of Ukraine and the cost of energy skyrocketing.
So I just want to say, I think it's incredible you've been so generous with your time. I think it speaks volumes that you're willing to reach out and talk to just ordinary, average Pennsylvanians. And I think that speaks really well. It's our duty as people that will be voting to learn as much as we can. So I encourage everyone to go to carlasands.com. You can see it's listed right behind her there, which is very convenient.
And follow me on social media too.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely. And I think that you would welcome, I think you feel the more people that look into your platforms, the better it'll be for you. So, Ambassador,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time.
Newsmax today. I hope they'll look at the Newsmax hit I did today about Ukraine.
Excellent, excellent. So yeah, and I'll link that in my channel as well. So thank you so much for your time, Ambassador. You've been incredibly generous with us, and yeah, we hope to talk to you here in the near future.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
And thanks, Carlos.
No problem. Thank you, Carla.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys. Now I have to figure out how to turn it off.
Yeah, that's me too. Don't worry. We'll see you.
I have no idea. I'm like looking around.